At just 21 years old, she believed life had already buried her dreams. Every evening, she stirred a pot over a lonely campfire, feeding strangers while carrying a heart no one could heal. Then one quiet rancher noticed something everyone else ignored, and one simple act of kindness changed both of their lives forever. Stay until the end, because this Wild West story proves that hope often arrives when you've stopped looking for it. Before we begin, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Every like helps us bring more heartfelt Wild West stories filled with hope, faith, and second chances. At 21, Emily Carter believed her story had already ended. Only a year earlier, she had dreamed of building a small homestead with her husband, Samuel, on the western frontier. They had traveled together with a wagon train, full of excitement about the future. But before they could claim their land, a terrible fever swept through the camp. Within days, Samuel was gone, leaving Emily completely alone hundreds of miles from anyone she had ever known. She wanted to return east, but she had no money, no family waiting for her, and nowhere to go. The wagon master offered her work as the camp cook in exchange for food and a place beside the supply wagons. Every sunrise, she gathered firewood, hauled heavy water buckets, chopped vegetables, baked bread, and stirred giant iron pots that fed dozens of travelers. The work was exhausting, but it kept her mind from breaking completely. The men around the camp respected her cooking, but rarely noticed her sadness. Most simply thanked her, filled their plates, and rode away with the sunrise. To them, she was only the quiet young widow beside the fire. Every evening, after everyone had eaten, Emily remained alone beside the dying flames. She stared into the glowing coals, remembering the promises Samuel had made beneath the stars. Sometimes she whispered, "I don't know why I'm still here." One evening, a new cattle drive arrived at the wagon camp. Among the riders was Daniel Harper, a hard-working rancher known throughout the territory for his honesty and quiet character. Unlike the noisy cowboys around him, Daniel noticed small things. He noticed Emily serving everyone before herself. He noticed the tired look in her eyes. He noticed how she smiled politely even when her own heart was breaking. When everyone finished eating, Daniel stayed behind. "This stew is the best meal I've had in weeks," he said warmly. Emily simply nodded. "Thank you." Daniel looked at the nearly empty pot. "And what are you eating?" She quietly lifted a piece of stale bread. "This is enough." Daniel understood immediately. She had once again given away her own supper so everyone else could eat. Without saying another word, he divided his untouched meal into 2 bowls. Emily tried to refuse. "I couldn't." "You already did enough for everyone else," Daniel answered gently. "For once, let someone care for you." Those simple words broke something inside her. For the first time since Samuel died, someone had looked beyond her work and seen her pain. Emily quietly accepted the warm bowl. She didn't realize that one small meal would become the beginning of a completely different life. The next morning, Daniel quietly thanked Emily for her hard work and offered her a temporary job at his ranch once the wagon train reached his valley. Emily almost refused. After losing her husband, she no longer believed she deserved a new beginning. But Daniel saw her strength where she saw only sorrow. When they arrived, Emily transformed the ranch kitchen with warm meals that lifted everyone's spirits. The ranch hands admired her kindness, and even the lonely ranch house began to feel like a home again. Little by little, Emily smiled more often, laughed around the campfire, and realized she was no longer surviving. She was living. One evening, Daniel admitted, "You didn't just change this ranch, you changed me too." For the first time since becoming a widow, Emily allowed herself to believe that perhaps God had not finished writing her story after all. By the time spring arrived, the ranch no longer felt like a place of work to Emily. It felt like the first place where she had truly belonged since losing Samuel. Every sunrise found her baking fresh bread, stirring hearty stews, and humming songs she had not sung in years. The lonely silence that once surrounded her had been replaced by laughter from the ranch hands, friendly conversations around the supper table, and the peaceful sound of horses grazing beyond the fence. Daniel never tried to rush her healing. Instead, he offered kindness in quiet ways. He repaired the rocking chair outside the cabin, because he noticed she liked watching sunsets there. He planted wildflowers near the kitchen window after hearing her mention that Samuel had once dreamed of growing flowers beside their future home. Those small acts reminded Emily that real love was shown through patience, respect, and compassion. One afternoon, a violent prairie storm swept across the valley. Fierce winds tore through the ranch, frightening the horses and scattering cattle across the open range. Several frightened workers raced after the herd, while Daniel became trapped beneath a fallen wagon loaded with supplies. Without thinking of her own safety, Emily ran through the driving rain toward him. Together with 2 ranch hands, she managed to lift enough of the wagon for Daniel to crawl free. Though bruised and exhausted, he smiled the moment he saw her standing beside him. "You saved my life today," he whispered. Emily shook her head. "You saved mine long before this storm ever came." In that moment, they both realized their lives had become deeply connected, not because of tragedy, but because kindness had slowly grown into trust. As the ranch recovered from the storm, Emily looked around at everything they had rebuilt together. The broken fences were repaired, the frightened animals safely returned, and the fields were greener than ever. She suddenly understood something that had taken months to learn. Losing Samuel had never meant losing the ability to love again. Loving Daniel would never erase the past, nor would it dishonor the memories she carried. Instead, it proved that the human heart, though deeply wounded, could heal without forgetting. One evening, Daniel invited her to walk across the golden meadow overlooking the ranch. As the sun disappeared behind the distant mountains, he quietly said, "The day I met you, I thought I was helping a lonely widow. I never imagined you would become the greatest blessing this ranch has ever known." Tears filled Emily's eyes as she answered, "And I believed my life had ended at 21. You showed me it was only waiting for a new beginning." Months later, the little ranch became known across the valley, not only for its healthy cattle, but also for the welcoming table, where no traveler was ever turned away hungry. Emily insisted that every stranger receive a warm meal before being asked any questions, because she never forgot what it felt like to have nothing except kindness from a stranger. People often said that peace lived inside Daniel's home, but both of them knew the truth. Peace had arrived the day one lonely rancher noticed a grieving young widow beside a campfire and chose compassion instead of walking away. Ecclesiastes 3:11 says, "He has made everything beautiful in its time." Emily finally understood those words. Her sorrow had not been the end of her story. It had simply been the road that led her to hope, healing, and a love she never believed she would find again. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that even after the darkest season, God can write a beautiful new beginning.